Some of you may know Happy Minute. Those of you who don't know and mistaken it as a massage parlor, we are not a massage parlor. We are essentially a post-production studio. We used to be a neighbors. We used to share the same office, which was in Northern Heights. We are still there. You guys kissed us. And now probably, we have been working with a lot of creative agencies. We are working with a lot of brands directly to help them create content, primarily in terms of digital space, which could be virtual reality, which could be augmented reality, and which could also be mixed reality, and also the next wave is in terms of the artificial intelligence. I'm not going to talk more on that. I'm purely going to keep it simple. I understand that we have a cross-section of people, creative, strategy, servicing, finance, technology. So I'm going to keep it very simple. Anybody who wants to have a little bit of deep dive on any of those aspects, you have my Twitter handle. Please feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to help you on that. Right? So I'll just give you the, I would say, mandatory story. But it's not really story because it's very split in terms of a 360-degree view. I don't think so there's any great thing about the music. What's more important is just have a quick look at what kind of a content is being shot in virtual reality, and then probably we'll talk more about it. The sound is insignificant here, so I don't think so we need to fret much about that. This is a compilation of a lot of VR content, and when we say VR, again I will probably try and do justice to how VR is used as a kind of a motherhood statement. But when you talk about VR, okay, so I think so that's far better. I think so virtual reality is a medium, or for that matter, a word is being abused insignificantly or many number of times. But when you talk about VR, you're not really talking about VR in this case. You're more often than not talking about a 360-degree video, which is very different from virtual reality, because virtual reality by definition has to be interactive, which means you're talking about a video which could be controlled by the user. You are the director. You are the person who is deciding what do I want to see in this video. Whereas when you do a 360-degree, you're not the director. You're still being driven by a director, and hence what you see is what the director wants you to see. The only difference is that you would see in a 360-degree space rather than a two-dimensional view, which means my field of vision is not restricted to what's in front of me. My field of vision is also about what's behind me, and hence I would probably think as if I'm sitting on a swivel chair and look all around me to see what's happening in that particular scene. So that's a kind of fundamental difference between 360-degree video and virtual reality, but most of the brands say that we want to do VR, whereas what they mean is that they want to do a 360-degree video. So I think so the elementary difference starts from that stage itself, and that speaks volumes about how brands are, I would say, illiterate, if that's the right word, about why they want to do VR and all that stuff. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to share some of the fundamental facts in terms of what are the questions which we generally ask our clients, and how I believe that they have really helped us in terms of doing justice to the brief and also being able to give a proper ROI to the brand. So as you could see that there are lots of compilation of video for brands like, you have Lamborghini in this, you've got brands like Subway, you've got homegrown brands like Renault and Tata in this, you've got Levi's, you've got art brands like, for example, Tate Museum in London, and so on and so forth. So point which I'm trying to make is that virtual reality or 360-degree as a medium can actually cut across categories. So those of you from strategy and sales actually can be rest assured that it will find implications in almost every possible category. It's not that only automotive could use it, it's not that only probably a life sciences or a pharma category could use it, but yes, the creative usage of the medium is extremely important, and that probably decides that what's a good 360 degree / VR versus something which is just like run-of-the-mill space. So those are all the compilation of the video which showcases. I'm not going to spend much time on this because any which way you would go on YouTube and figure it out. The point which I was trying to make is that generally, and this is something which is based on an experience of interacting with a lot of clients in Asia Pacific region. I interact with a lot of clients based out of our Shanghai office as well as from our India office, which is in Mumbai, and rest of the brands. You talk about brands like Ferrari, you talk about brands like a yogurt brand called Masilia in China, you talk about Levi's, or you talk about the clients like, for example, political parties in India who also come up with requests saying that we need to do 360-degree video. As we speak, there is a discussion which is going on in my office with the political party about the farmer agitation in India by saying how we can leverage it and make a 360-degree video out of it. Okay, so I'm just telling you that how different categories are posing up to virtual reality / 360-degree space, and how increasingly these questions are likely to be put across to all of us, saying that we want to do VR, and hence what we must know that this is what we should do and this is what we should not do. But I would say with a certain degree of confidence that most of the time you will probably feel that VR is all about having really good times because you're shooting with probably state-of-the-art cameras. You call them Nokia also, you call them probably a GoPro with an Omni ring and so on and so forth, which I would say is right. I would say it's wrong. You're really having a good time because you get to shoot with such nimble-footed camera, which gives you so much amount of space to do so many things. So yes, you do have good times with VR or 360 degree. But the question which we ask is that are you creating good things out of that? So it's good to go on a paid vacation or a paid trip to an exotic location and shoot with 360 degree cameras. But the point is that are we really creating good things out of that? And that is a big question mark. I believe that there is a huge dearth of investments which is happening in VR / 360 degree vis-a-vis the outcome, which is essentially a good content, which is symbolic of something which is called good things. Why it's not happening? Couple of reasons. One reason, the lack of understanding of VR, lack of talent, and third, and equally important, clients don't have time. I think so that's something which is so I would say familiar of our industry. VR needs far greater time in terms of conceptualization than what we are even talking about a conventional 2D space. Why? Because you are adding one more quadrant to the storytelling, which is your fourth quadrant. So when you see, you are probably seeing a 270-degree view of the environment. I'm adding one more quadrant which is behind me, and hence when you're talking about creating a concept in 360-degree space and expecting that you will be able to give a good output, I think so what you really need is good time at your hand. I always use a very, I would say, to the point video to most of my clients, and I'll probably play that here. Most of you would probably remember this logo or kind of, be fan of this. That's Roger Federer. Let's look at what is he famous for. This is a simple compilation, call it the sound. This is a simple compilation of his peak performance, where he is delivering aces after aces after aces. Most of the client expectations are to this tune, saying that we want to create good content within VR / 360-degree space, which is akin to delivering an ace in terms of the content space. It should go viral on YouTube, it should go viral on YouTube or Facebook and say that, wow, that's a good content which we would want to connect. However, what they don't realize is that before he delivers aces, he spends shitloads of time in terms of practicing on code to ensure that his fundamentals of the game are in place. And most of the clients, I would say that don't really care about these fundamentals. They say that I don't mind, I just want a good content out there. The reason I share these pieces of video with you is to put across the point that since you guys are the helm of affairs in terms of interacting with a lot of clients, it's important that we have the fundamentals in place in terms of why we are and what we are needs to be done, right? So that's the context. Let me go to the first question. Why we are in the first place? I'm sure that you will have a lot of answers. Usual suspects being that it's the in thing, the client has digitally savvy marketing or a marketing head or a brand head or a media manager. The brand wants to be digitally aligned. The brand has got a huge focus of shifting towards digital medium in next 6 months time and so on and so forth. All points taken on board, but those are not the answers why you should do VR. Because digital has got many connotations. Digital is not only VR. Until the time we do not answer this question very, very emphatically and very, very convincingly between the creative folks, which is essentially the creative agency, and the brand, I think so this is something which is going to, for sure, going into a suicidal move for the person who is going to front-end this particular account with any client. And we have faced this in many situations. A case in point is about 1.5 years back, we received a brief from Twitter. And Twitter said that since there is a drought and the parchness of the land which is in western Maharashtra, we want to promote or we want to showcase this thing in virtual reality or 360-degree video. Now, great concept, because what you do is that most of us, which are like city folks, don't really spend time, and obviously it's justified also because we are so busy with our work that we don't find time to go to a kind of a drought hit area. It could be as near as in Maharashtra. And when the brand approached us by saying that, listen, we want to give this piece of empathy to people who are Twitterati but who may not be able to go, to actually take camera into all those places and tell them that how a small kid is finding trouble in terms of even having a potable drinking water. Now that's bringing empathy. But it's a very strong reason for you to do virtual reality. Now switch to a scene wherein there is a brand, let's say Lipton, who says that I get my choicest of the tea leaves from bagans in Darjeeling or Assam, and I want to do a VR which actually tells the consumer that if you sip a cup of tea, it gets you re-energized and so on and so forth. That's also probably one of the reasons why a brand may want to do virtual, I won't say use virtual reality 360-degree video, because you are able to go to a bagan and probably feel that where the leaves are being picked up from, right? So that's also probably not in the order of merit. Twitter example, best way of using VR. Why? Because you are able to build empathy into the story, which is a great virtue of virtual reality / 360-degree. You are able to bring presence to somebody who may not necessarily be able to go to that place, which is the case in point for the Lipton example which I shared with you. But there are a lot of examples. A case in point is one of the Congress party, one of the political parties, Congress being one of them, actually approached us and saying that Rahul Gandhi is making a speech and we want that to be in VR. And I don't know what to say on this. Why would you want to see a speech in virtual reality? There's no reason, right? Your television camera, the timer doesn't capturing the speech and all the garbage which is being going out is there on television, which is good enough for you to see. Why would you want to do it in VR? Why would you want to do it in a 360-degree space? So, 3 examples. Perfect example of Twitter, you're talking about empathy, you're talking about engagement, which makes sense. You're talking about educating somebody, makes sense. You wanting to bring an experience and presence to the person in the case of a Lipton tea, makes sense. But you want to talk about somebody's speech in VR? Nonsense. I think so. That's the reason why we always pressurize the clients to answer this question, why you want to do VR? And I strongly urge that when we put this question to the client, at certain level it gets answered, at certain level it gets, well, do you really mean business? Why are you asking me this? I'm telling you do VR, do VR. But when you ask this question, believe you me, it gets you the right answer and it's a better chances of a ROI or a proper return on investment. So as I kind of preempted my slide that you need to do VR / 360-degree because you want to promise an experience and presence to somebody who may not be physically traveled to that location, which is a very important part. Or you want to build empathy about something, which obviously comes from sharing the same, I would say, screen presence or being present in that particular space, which I call it as experience and presence. Second question, which most often than not get answered by clients, and I was discussing with Mamta a while back. We worked together on one of the projects wherein the client said that we want to do VR, we want to do a beautiful film, and internally they could not agree that how they will amplify it. See, 360-degree videos, even if I for a second don't call it VR, is not something which you could consume like a 2D screen. Yes, you could move your cursor, and you saw the showreel which I shared with you a while back. It seemed to be like disjointed images of multiple frames being stitched together. Because imagine you got a sphere and it's got flattened out. So that's a 360-degree video. Not every browser supports 360-degree video. So even if you create a VR content or a 360-degree content, there are chances that you are not able to amplify it. What's the point in creating something which you are not even able to amplify to a considerable fraction of the audience whom you want to reach out to? Correct? The only browser currently which supports a 360-degree browsing is Facebook and YouTube. Within YouTube also, your conventional YouTube, you have to put a filter saying that I want to look at 360-degree video, and even then, you are not able to get a full immersive view because it's still showing you a 360-degree in a 2D screen. So you have to manually take your mouse and scroll the screen to the left or right to be able to give you a semblance saying, okay, I'm able to see a 360-degree view, but you're still not present in the screen. So amplification is a very big question today, which is, I would say, one of the key stumbling blocks for industry at large. And obviously a lot of efforts are happening in that direction. But at a consumer level, I think so we still are scratching the surface in terms of saying that are we really able to amplify the content which we create well or not. Usual modes of amplification. So the first one which you see on the left hand is cardboards. Google did a huge foray into the cardboards, and I think so they have been fairly successful. So cardboards today could be bought for as low as probably $1.5 to $2 and you could purchase it in bulk, and it could be made available. It's not about the cardboard per se, but it's about the content, which is a completely different challenge which I will talk about in the next few slides. Because people don't mind buying a cardboard, but people say, what do I do with the cardboard? I have a smartphone, I do have a cardboard, but where is the content? So it's kind of a chicken and egg story out there. But the brands must understand that you need to have a strong amplification roadmap, which starts with, do you have cardboards? Are you willing to procure a certain number of cardboards which help you reach out to certain audience for which you figure out a distribution map? Take the case of Britannia as a case in point, and we have discussed this at the highest level with all these brands. Britannia, they said, we love VR, we want to do 360-degree content, we have got strong footprints across modern trade outlets, and we would want to engage it in a way wherein a consumer picks up a pack of Good Day or XYZ cookies and you get a cardboard free. Fine. The distribution, are you able to take care of distribution? Well, we will give it a shot, we will try. They went to the level wherein they realized that it's not an easy game, because across modern trade outlets they were facing a lot of problems in terms of inventory check, getting the branded cardboard, what is the stock keeping of that, and so on and so forth. As a result, they shot down the idea saying that it's a great idea, but I don't think so we have got the right application platform. So, that's one of the way it can be figured out. Then of course you have got the high-end, I would say gadgets, like you've got an HTC Vive, which is the second, icon which you see, or maybe a Samsung Gear VR. I believe some of you would have seen the cardboard as well as the Gear VR when my colleague Simon had presented to you some of the case studies which we had done. So that's another way, but it's expensive. While cardboard is cheap, an HTC Vive, or for that matter even a Samsung-led, Oculus-led, Gear VR, it's very expensive. Why would brand wants to spend equal amount on procurement of hardware, which probably has got no life after your content has lived its life? And in today's digital day and age, how long can the content have stickiness? A week? 2 weeks max? So why would I have a capital purchase of maybe about 30,000, 40,000 worth of Samsung Gear VR and keep it just as a showpiece in my showrooms, or for that matter my modern trade outlets. So that's the second area, which is where the modern, I would say, social media comes in. That's YouTube and Facebook, who can actually support a browser-led 360-degree video. But again, as I said, that they have limitations out there. So I'm not certainly saying this that we should not be doing 360-degree. Please don't get me wrong. I would be, hurting my own interest if I were to say that. But I want to be fair to the trade, and I want to be fair to all of us by saying we must answer all these questions before we take the plunge by saying that, hey guys, we want to do a 360-degree video. So first part, why you want to do VR or 360-degree. Second part, how are you going to amplify it? Let me give you an example of how some brands have used the amplification route in a brilliant way. Now, you might have seen this video before, but let me give you a backgrounder to this. Becker, which is one of the beer brands, I would say it's akin to something like, let's say, a Mountain Dew, which says "Dar ke aage jeet hai." So you're talking about edginess, you're talking about content which is like pushing you to live on the edge kind of a content. So there's a space for that content to survive in a 360-degree space. Come to think of it, if someone were to tell you that, have you done bungee jumping ever in your life? I would say no. Well, would you want to experience from a first-hand point of view what it is like to jump from Lokrans Bridge in South Africa and say that, hey guys, I did my bungee jump, maybe in a virtual space. That's an edgy content, that's experience and presence. I'm able to experience it from a first-hand, and I'm also able to feel the presence of being out there. Or for that matter, do a base jumping. Or for that matter, do a shark cage diving. Now these are all edgy experiences which the brand stands for. It could be Red Bull, of all you know. So when the brand approached us, we said that fine, it makes sense to have a why we are answered correctly, because you do have experiences which stand for edginess and which kind of correlate with the brand, which is Becker. We said, how are we going to amplify it? So that's when we realized that they have a huge footprint across, and obviously this is not a case for India, which we're talking about markets where the alcohol is much easier available than going to a child beer shop. So you could go to any modern trade outlet and pick up a can of beer or a carton of beer. So we said that why don't we link it with the point of sale, which obviously is a big touch point from a beverage retail point of view. So we created a cardboard link space. So there's a commentary which is any which way not in English, so we'll not be able to probably comprehend. But what we did was that we said that we will link it up to the purchase. You buy about 24 cans of beer and you get a cardboard free. So that's linking it up to the purchase. And what do you do with that cardboard? We say, fine, you've got a cardboard, you already have a smartphone. Why don't you just go to the app store, download an app, and I'm going to showcase every month one experience which is you would not have experienced in your life ever. Could be a base jumping, could be a shark cage diving, could be a walking a tightrope atop two large buildings. So all those 6 or 7 different experiences we shortlisted, we shot them, and then we said that we are going to release one every month. So you're building kind of an appointment viewing. You already have a cardboard which has been bought with the linking to the purchase of the beer, and you say, okay, I've got the cardboard, I like this brand, I also like the language which this brand is talking to me, which is about being edgy, and it is pushing the boundaries to give me that first-hand experience. So that is, giving a tick mark on both the points. Why you want to do VR? Because my content is something which a consumer sitting in probably an office chair will never be able to experience, but I can give him or her that experience. Second, I am going to amplify it well using my point of sale. So this is one case wherein you know how amplification can actually be beneficial for the brand. Third question, once the brand has said that, okay, I know that my content is sticky enough, it merits huge amount of traction from a virtual reality / 360-degree, I am able to amplify it. I have figured out a way using either a point of sale or for that matter any other mode of distribution. The next question is that what do you do? And that's kind of preempting my first point, that are you doing a virtual reality or are you doing a 360-degree video? Because if you are doing CG, which means a completely different workflow, we are talking about asset creation, rendering a 360-degree space. Rendering time could be like absolutely obscene number of hours or number of days. And then you're talking about the lighting quality, the rendering, the finish of the CG product. So it's a completely different challenge, which the brand must understand. But the upside of CG content is that you're able to create a lot of things which you are otherwise not able to create. Let me give you a case in point. We are talking to Bajaj. Bajaj has launched this brand called Domina, which says that only babies sleep at night. And I'm sure that some of you would have seen that TVC, which is there on most of the social media. So the concept which they had was that to push the boundaries further about the brand positioning, saying that Dominar is a 400cc bike, it separates the men from the boys, and it's meant for somebody who would want to see the city in the night time rather than just usual commute. So the punchline, only babies sleep at night. If you're a man enough, go and check out the Dominar. Now they said that how about making the showrooms open during night? Well, it could be a good innovation in its own category because most of your showrooms are closed during night time. But Bajaj said that you want to keep the showrooms open, may not be daily, maybe 2 times a week. Fair point. Can you take the test drive of the bike during night time? Big question mark. No, probably, because you will have lots of bandobast and a lot of racers and a lot of drunken driving cases and so on and so forth. Bajaj would not want to risk it. So you have a scenario wherein the brand wants to communicate to its audience saying that, see the beautiful city in the night, how it looks, but you can't really take out the bike. Virtual reality is your answer. Probably a 360-degree content. Now the challenge here, why I wanted to bring this example, is that when we started shooting, we realized that unlike a car shoot, a bike shoot has its own complications. Because you need to give a first-person point of view, which means the rider needs to wear a helmet which has got a Omni rig or a GoPro rig mounted on his helmet. And then there is vibration thanks to the roads in Mumbai. There is absolutely no ambient lighting because you can't create lighting in 360-degree scene, which is a big question mark. Because if you have lights, you have a problem of editing them out in post. So you need to have, as far as possible, ambient lighting which is good enough. There could be lighting, but then you have to be very smart in terms of where are the lights going to be positioned so that in an overlap situation, you are able to kind of place them out, right? So here you are talking about shooting in an outdoor environment, in a city, less light, lot of vibration, and in 360-degree video, if you put on a 360-degree video using a head-mounted gear, which is an HMD, there are chances that you will feel nausea because of the constant motion. Now that's a hygiene factor. When we realized and we put it across to the client said that can we do it in CG? So that's why I wanted to ponder on this point that there's a lot of discussion which needs to happen before we jump on the point that it's a simple 360-degree rig. GoPro today would be probably 35,000 rupees. Get a set of 6 GoPros, start shooting. It's not as simple as that. You could go with CG or live action depending upon what's the script, depending upon what's the demand of the script and also the place or the ambience in which you are going to shoot. So we have multiple examples. I'm not going to play the video, but on the left hand side what you see is a Renault Kwid, which was essentially a youth car, which was clearly created keeping in mind that you're talking to somebody who's probably having its first ownership of a four-wheeler, which is a Kwid, which is an SUV design which we created for Renault. And on the right hand side what you see is the Tata Tiago, which was shot in Mr. Ratan Tata's bungalow, which is giving you the semblance of a family car and not really a youth car. So again, 2 different touch points, both talking in 360-degree space, one in CG, another is in live action, because both had different target audience and different constraints. Constraints in Kwid was that the interior of the car was not ready. So you're talking about driving the car, but the interior of the car being not ready because it was a production model. It had media nav, it had got a lot of best in class, so to say, best in class offerings. So hence you could not, you wanted to show them, but it's not available because the production car is not ready. So what do you do to get into the CG space? But in case of Tiago, it was family car, you're talking about beautiful environments, you could shoot it, and hence we went for a live shoot. Last part, and then I will go into one case study which some of you would have seen, some of you would have also remembered, is what's the return on investment. Now that's a a make or break of any project, right? And the clients might ask that, okay, I've answered TV/VR. I think so I figured out how am I going to amplify it. Or even if not, I'm comfortable with a YouTube or a Facebook shares, fine with me. So that's addressing the amplification part. And then the third part is that my product is available so I can shoot it, which is a live action vis-a-vis a CG, which is the third point. Most important question, how are you going to measure it? Because 360 degree by definition is, I would say, probably at 60% of the cost of your 2D, which is a fact. You could do a 360 degree even at about 60% of the cost of a conventional 2D film. These are all thumb rules or a ballpark numbers, but still ROI is an ROI. Even if I am spending 60 rupees on a piece of content, which is not going to be as amplified as your 2D content, I must answer the question, what is the ROI factor on this? I'm going to share an example which very clearly articulates that how the ROI factor was thought through before the project got commissioned with Tata Motors. I know you guys also work with Tata Motors, so this is something which is it's a small world overall. So when Tiago was launched, they said that we believe that we have a winner at hand. We believe that the car is absolutely good looking. It's got design philosophy and so on and so forth. So all the plus points of the sales pitch of a car. But one of the consumer insight, and I think so that's a very relevant consumer insight, and which was evolved along with the creative and the media agency both. And you really need a brand like Tata to actually get all the partners under one roof and discuss it openly. And I kind of really respect them for that. They got all the stakeholders under one roof, transparently discussed, saying that guys, this is the product, that's what I'm doing. We've gone ahead and signed Lionel Messi as a brand ambassador, which in itself is a very big piece of communication coming from an Indian brand. They said that we want to launch Tiago using, this was not called Tiago then, it was called Zika. And unfortunately there was a virus called Zika at that point in time. As a result, they had to overnight change the name from Zika to Tiago, which in itself is a different story, but I will not dwell into that for the time being. So we started off with Zika and we ended up with Tiago. But when we started with whatever you call it, Zika/Tiago, we realized that it's a brilliant looking car. It's got plush interiors. It's got a lot of upside to it in terms of sound and so on and so forth. But the challenge is that the consumer, till the time, does not take a test drive of a car, the purchase decision does not trigger into an immediate purchase for any brand. And that's been proven time and dozen that till the time you do not have that pull to actually sit in a car and do a test drive, you probably will not end up buying that car. Now, test drive was a big question. How do you do test drives? Well, they say that we can make an appointment and the car will come to your home. Fair point. That can come and I could actually travel that. But there's a huge cost, right? Huge cost of somebody taking the car to your place, waiting for you, you reaching home, getting freshened up and saying, okay, let's go for a test drive. In a scenario where Tata wanted this to be reached to your doorstep. Otherwise, you always have an option of going to a showroom. And thanks to our busy schedules, not many people end up going to a showroom unless you are really kicked on with the car. So how do you funnel in all these things? On one hand, there is a huge cost of acquisition. On another hand, there is a consumer insight that till the time you don't test drive the car, you may not end up buying it. We said, how about we actually delivering the car in a virtual manner to the consumer by saying, okay guys, you like the car, I'm going to launch this on so and so day. You get a chance to actually test drive it without really stepping out of the comfort of your armchair, wherever you may be, in any part of India. And that's the challenge which we took up with. So we created something which is probably, I think so, one of the best case studies in India in terms of how ROI could be linked to a 360-degree/virtual space. So April 2016 is when this car was launched, and we did a pilot test at Auto Expo, which was in February 2014. February 2015, whatever, whenever Auto Expo. I'm not pretty sure on that. So we did this sampling of virtual drive at Auto Expo, wherein there was a car which was kept there. And we say that, well, you can sit in the car, but how about if you can test drive it? If you can test drive it now? Well, not really, but virtually you can. And that's when we introduced this VR drive, which was actually co-created between us, Tata Motors and Viscraft. And we created the whole scene out there, which was really one of the best, I would say. I mean, Tata Motors got a lot of accolades for a lot of innovations. One of them was also this. And there's a tweet from Delna which says that Fantastico feeling to see Zika. That time it was called Zika. And virtual drive, we are being so popular that used to register for it. So emboldened by this, we actually created the next wave, which is really talking about the ROI factor. I'll play this video here. Again, sound, that's not important because it's all visuals. That's not a video created by us, it's a video created by Viscraft, so full credit to them. But the point is that we are talking about how the partnerships can actually create a winning combination. So we partnered with a company called Paper Cats, which is based in Bangalore, and we had to get about 2.7 million cardboards printed, because that's the circulation of Times of India in Mumbai, Delhi and Bangalore. And the challenge for us was to ensure that we are able to get all those newspapers with a cardboard delivered at the doorsteps on the launch day, so that the consumer sees the ad, looks at the car, and also has the choice of actually test driving the car, though in a virtual space. Then of course closing the loop by saying that you could, and it's all app based, so you've got strong ROI and analytics built into that. So you could, and we had integrated the app through Yahoo, which is Blurry Analytics from Yahoo, and said that you could actually book a test drive, physical test drive. Now that you've seen the virtual car, you could actually book the car, which is also a feature which was available in the app. So there were many analytics which were actually, and the app was completely controlled by Tata Motors or Tata Technology team. So you had a neutral person actually giving you, saying that how many downloads and how many people have actually requested for this. So this is just a video in terms of what went into making of these 2.7 million cardboards. So generally it's like 1:4. So you've got, if there is one newspaper, there is 4 times the readership, and hence you're talking about roughly 10 million reach of virtual drive of a car, which is significant number. And remember, you're talking about scale, because you cannot get an ROI if you don't reach the right scale, because your investments and your ROI have to go commensurate with the kind of money which you're putting in. So that's just a small video what we actually partnered with them. And as I said, that this was a cardboard which was delivered to about 2.7 million households across Mumbai, Delhi and Bangalore. We just didn't stop here. We ensured that there is a strong social media push which is happening in the form of app stores. So there were paid search and paid media which was used. Of course, this was all a team effort from Tata Technology team also. But I'm saying that how a central piece of content sits in the brand strategy to be able to actually take it up to a level wherein the brand is really seeing a high ROI from that. So this is just screen grabs of the app. You have an option of a standard or a headset mode. In case if you don't get the headset, you can still see the virtual drive, but in a standard mode. So you're not missing out on those people or those audience. These are just some of the screen grabs. As you could see that there were certain distinct features, like if you see there is an impact design. So the car comes to a standstill, you are able to understand the design philosophy of the car, and then you go inside the car and you are talking about things like dual front airbags and so on and so forth. So net, it's a brochure come virtual drive which has been delivered from a brand point of view. Of course, you have an option of book a test drive and book the Tiago, as I told you. These are actually the app downloads which happened within first 4 weeks of the app being launched. And some of you who are from the technology side would actually vouch for this, that for a non-utility app, it's not a Book My Show, it's not a Zomato, it's a brand app. Why in the first place should I have a brand app which does not give me any incremental benefit? So they are like good numbers in its own code. But I think so the real icing on the cake is actually impact on sales. And these are the actual numbers from Tata Motors, wherein they're talking about close to about 32,000 cars which were being booked slash confirmed between February to October 2016. February is when we did the Auto Expo. April is when we launched the car. 12th of April through newspapers. And so actual numbers which you see have started picking up effective 4th month, and it went on to pick to about 31 to 32,000 cars which have been booked slash confirmed. I'm not saying that it was purely because of the VR content. But let's face it, the innovation and the reason why the car should be launched from a virtual space was a big factor in terms of helping the brand to reach out to those particular consumers without really stepping out the comfort of your home. So just to wrap up a few important points which I believe are extremely crucial for us to get into proper brand engagement. Why we want to do virtual reality, how you're going to amplify it, whether it's going to be a CG or a live action footage for you, what's going to be the PR strategy behind it. It's not just about saying that I'm going to do a simple video and keep it there. And of course, what's the ROI factor? If you are able to address all these together, I think so that's going to be a next virtual reality content which probably one would collaborate with. I think so that kind of concluded one part of my conversation. I don't really call it a presentation because there's hardly any, except for the visuals out there. I was also asked to comment on a fashion usage of VR, which I believe is probably one of the categories for you. So I do have an example which I have put together, which we did for a brand called Ted Baker. Now this is a pretty interesting piece of VR, and I would strongly encourage you to go to YouTube or go to Ted Baker website and figure it out that how this works. So Ted Baker essentially is, let's call it, let's say a shopper stop, for the lack of any better example, out there in London. And it stands for certain unique styling, unique fashion, which is like unisexual. So you could have kids, male, female, kids, and all sorts of fashion under one roof. They don't have a creative agency. They don't have a single creative agency on board. It's very much like Zara, which a brand is probably very, very strong, but they don't really have a creative agency on board. So Ted Baker approached us by saying that we want to make a shoppable film, and that was the brief. Shoppable film, and it was not about a VR film. It says shoppable film, which means we want to. Of course, they are very strong on e-commerce, and we do a lot of retouching work for them. So what happens is that when you go to their website and see some of the good images, most of those images have been retouched, improvised by one of the Happy Finish studios. It could be London, it could be Shanghai, it could be India, or it could be Portland. So we are already having a relationship with them, and they say that we want to ensure that it goes into the next phase wherein we are able to tell the consumer that you like it, you buy it. So that's a shoppable film. And we realize that shoppable film needs interactivity. And interactivity means you're talking about a virtual reality. So it gets into a CG/live action footage scene. So what we created for them, and I've got a 2D footage of that which I'm going to play very quickly. It was called Keeping Up with the Bakers. So as you could see, and we shot it with Nokia also for multiple reasons, and I'll tell you why. So you have got a house of bakers, which is actually Ted Baker, and you've got two views of that house as a 360 degree. So again, coming back to the point, why we want to do 360 degree? Because the story was that a baker household has got multiple personalities. So you've got one aspect of baker family which is very, very sporty, and you've got one aspect of baker family which is very, very conventional, orthodox. Which one are you? And hence the film title was Meet the Bakers. So you are able to see two different worlds. Think of it as two hemispheres. So the one part of the hemisphere is the orthodox baker family, and one part of hemisphere is the sporty, modern-looking baker family. And hence the film said Meet the Bakers. So we started thinking right from the word go, saying that since the brand has got split personality, if I can use that word safely out here, not in London, then fine, we will create a film which has got two different aspects and take your pick which one you are, and hence Meet the Bakers. And then we said that now we want to add interactivity because it's a shoppable film, and hence you would have seen that when you put it on a headgear, which is an HMD, you're able to actually click on a particular merchandise which you like, and it automatically connects you to their e-commerce website and thereby links you to their shopping page. So what you're doing is that you're actually pushing the brand messaging by saying Ted Baker has got every single choice for you to offer depending upon what personality you are. Come, meet the bakers, take your pick, what do you want, and you're able to make a shoppable VR film onto that. Now this is the reason I put it up at the last moment, so I don't have much of the literature on this out there, but I know for sure because we were involved in terms of creation of this. So if you'd have seen the film, it was all still images, which means you can also do 360 degree with a still image. So no longer it needs to be purely in terms of saying that I need a video. You could actually, when we have done something for one of the brands in India called India First Life Insurance, probably if some of you are on Facebook, you just go to India First Life Insurance. The brief, I'll first wrap up on this and then I'll talk about India First. So we created this complete scene in still imagery. So we kept a camera which is a Nokia Ozo. Why Nokia Ozo? Because Nokia Ozo gives you brilliant color and resolution, and also it has got a capability to give you a live feed. Which means if you want to do a live 360 degree, so Facebook, if you go, Facebook can give you, I was live, and then there is 360 degree. So you could actually do live 360 degree. And which is where Nokia Ozo comes in, where Nokia Ozo can actually give you a real-time stitching. So I don't need a post-production business in terms of saying that I'm going to stitch it, it's going to take 2 days or 3 days. I can actually stitch it real time with a little bit of retouch, I'm going to push it across. So we tested this out and we found that the film was really sleek and nice in terms of its colors and resolutions. So to come back to VR in fashion, and since fashion is more about that capturing the moment rather than a passing moment, because it's all about style, it's more about color, which needs to be treated well in a still image rather than a motion image. I think so there is a strong merit for doing VR in fashion, wherein you could actually create a still image set, shoot it, retouch it, color correct it, add CG elements into that, and here's you got a VR content or a 360 degree still image content out there. I'll just close this part in terms of giving you an example of India First. So insurance is a very boring category. Most of us don't want to think about it because it's negative. It's negative communication essentially. And more so, their research told that there are two set of consumers. The fatherly lot, who's more concerned with the Life Insurance Corporation of India, the LICs of the world. The middle ones who are probably considering an HDFC or a Kotak or an XYZ, and here's a new brand which probably nobody knows called India First Life Insurance. But they wanted to cater to the early entrants, people who don't have an insurance, but they are the ones, the young ones, who need the most from an insurance point of view. Because if you start early, your premiums are low and so on and so forth. But they say that we want to connect with them not in the form of a still imagery, we want to connect with them in a medium which they are more comfortable with. We created 3 different scenarios. Those scenarios were about a young guy who's actually going on a stargazing camp in one of the beautiful hills, and the film, it's not a film, it's a still image. It starts with wherein there is a beautiful yellow colored tent. You have a bonfire around the tent. This is not still image. You could see a night sky which is very beautifully starlit and all, and you are enjoying that view and saying, wow, what a place, I want to go here. And once the camera turns behind you, you realize that there is a meteor which is actually falling in that area. And then once you do a full 360 degree, you come back to the same location where you were, and it tells you because life happens. And that's where India First Life Insurance. The second was about a jungle trek. You go on a jungle trek, you're talking about a beautiful nature imagery which you want to click pictures, and there is, so you start clicking pictures and you realize that at one particular point it says no photography, and when you turn back you realize that there is a cheetah which is about to pounce on you and it says life happens. And the third one was about a beach location where you're on a beach holiday and you're enjoying the surf and you realize that that's a tsunami affected area. So that's again 360 view in a still image. So I just want to kind of wrap up on that it's not necessarily that one has to have a huge budgets. Of course it's good if you have got huge budgets. We are shooting currently, and I think so that's what probably I'll have a discussion with you, about an automotive brand which is fairly big in terms of looking at a kind of VR content which they want. So it can also go to a level where your film in itself is a very high budget. But at the same time, to get the clients start enjoying this medium, you could also go to with still imagery and create a 360 degree content for them, which brings a smile on the consumer's face and saying that, wow, this is a good communication, I like it. So that's, I think so, would be a success factor for us. I don't think so I have a content to talk about for 1 hour, but probably I just want to end up with one slide which is my favorite. I always consider this is the inventor of Oculus, and this movie is probably symbolic of wherein Simba is held up and shown by his father that, listen, this is your kingdom. It's from the Lion King, where he says that this is your kingdom, and he's able to see that in a virtual, not in a virtual space, in a real space. I think so that's the final dream for most of us in the PR business to say that we are able to hold our customers right out there as Simba and tell them that look at the beautiful world which we have created for you. It could be in motion, it could be in CG, it could be in still space, but that's the real usage of PR/360. Yep. I think so. I'm done with whatever I had to talk about. Any questions? I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
Tiago piece, how much would something like that cost?
So, Tiago, the total investments which they did was close to about, I think so, 1.2 crores, because we had to get the best of the shoot locations and everything. So we selected between Ambi Valley. We even looked at locations outside India and it didn't work out, and then finally we shortlisted Ratan Tata's bungalow. But that's an indicative cost which does not include the paper cats, which is essentially the cardboard production and media spends on that. I'm talking about pure content out here.
Something that would be expense like the technical.
Oh, that could be as low as probably about 1.5 to 2 million Indian rupees. So that's a whole range.
And how much time does it cost?
It's a function of script, to be honest with you, but I think so. A good thumb rule is that if you have a concept which is why it addresses why we are affirmatively, 6 weeks is a decent time. So they had multiple matrices. One was of course the download of the app. Second was also the social media buzz which it was able to create, which is equally important, which is though not directly measurable because an app is a direct measure, right? And then also the app had a link that you want to book a car or you want to book a test drive, which is a completely different matrix because that is directly linking into that. So there were 3 matrices which they used.
How many responses did you get for the car?
So those 32,000 numbers which I told about is actually an outcome of saying that I want to book a car or test drive a car.
Right after the PR.
Absolutely. Which is a significantly high number because a good car would sell probably, with due respect to Tata, probably Indicas and all, they only used to sell what? 5,000 cars or 4,000 cars, something to that effect. From that you're straight away taking it up like 6 times. I think so it's worth the investment. Yeah, so it linked to your e-commerce website. So that's again an ROI because you know that how much traffic is coming and how you're getting the traffic. Your question is referring to the HMDs, the head-mounted displays vis-a-vis a cardboard, right? So we would obviously prefer an HMD. The reason being because the head-mounted display comes with its own standard specifications. So if you want scale, you have to compromise on the hardware. Because obviously if you want scale, if you want to reach out to 2.7 million people, the brand would go bonkers if they were to invest into a Gear VR, which is a very sophisticated piece. So it's a trade-off which the brand has to answer that do I want scale or do I want top-notch quality. So case in point, we work with Honeywell, which is into aviation automation business. Now, that's a B2B space. And for them, there is no reason to get into an uncontrolled space. So they are investing heavily into an HTC Vive and an Oculus Rift kind of a space. Because their audience is somebody who probably has a capacity to buy an Airbus or a Boeing. And hence it makes sense to do a very, very controlled environment for them. But if you want scale, I think so you need to go in for a piece of hardware which is like a cardboard, which comes with its own sets of merits and demerits. A cardboard? About $1 to $1.5. And of course you could negotiate if you want to bulk quality, bulk quantity. There are a lot of suppliers in China who actually do a pretty neat job and they can also give it to like 50 cents. It's a question of volume gaming. If you print more, you'll be able to drop down to about 25 cents also.
Okay, that's last time we had this session, we got around 200 of those for approximately.
360 degree. Create, right? I mean, you should, I'm not too sure whether I got your question correctly. You could create content first in terms of scripting it. That's one part of it, which is creatively thinking about it. And the second part is producing it, which is a function of camera. And third part is post-producing it, which is a function of stitching and removing the blur lines and all that stuff. Did that answer your question? No. I'm not too sure whether I got your question correctly. Your question was, how do you create 360 degree content? It all starts with an idea. I mean, I gave you an example. Twitter, perfect example of a 360 degree content. Rahul Gandhi speaking in a forum, bad idea of 360 degree content. So how do you create it? It boils down to what you want to create. And is there enough reason for you to get into a VR/360 degree world? Because it gives you presence and immersiveness. If you are not able to get that from the idea or the concept, there's no reason to do VR. I think so. It's a matter of max 18 months to 24 months where you will start seeing a live 360 degree footage. Because technology is definitely catching up much faster. I think so. Where the problem currently rests, and I'm being very candid about it, is that there are not many thinkers from a creative direction point of view who think in 360. So you go to best of the creative directors in India and they will start thinking, okay, the camera trails. There's no camera, there's no trailing, the camera is seeing everything. So that's where the cookie crumbles. The biggest challenge is not about technology. The biggest challenge is about people thinking that how 360 degree needs to be narrated. That's a big question mark, and I think so we are still, and I strongly urge that you go through some of the video tutorials from Google, which actually talks about what you need to think of when conceptualizing a 360 degree content. Absolutely. I can do a Nokia Ozo shoot today sitting in Bombay, which gives you live feed of any particular thing which is happening. What you need is probably a good bandwidth, which is still manageable. But the question is that, is there good enough content which needs to be showcased? I mean, take a case in point, the Justin Bieber concert. It was a very used live case and it was on Geo platform, right? Which talks about best bandwidth. You just shoot a Nokia Ozo, you put a Nokia Ozo camera, get the live feed of Justin Bieber performing on your data network, which is Geo. Couldn't have asked for a better use case of this. But it's about how people can think that yes, this can be created, this is something which is a perfect case. So when you say beauty, you're not linking it up with passion. You're talking about things like fragrances, your cosmetics and so on and so forth, right? So I think so, why go far? We only have done something for Charlotte Tilbury, which is actually a perfume brand. Not necessarily, I mean, I don't know whether you would call it as a beauty business or not, but wherein we shot with, I think so there's a famous model, I'm forgetting her name. We shot with her about the fact that how the fragrance plays on her and how she's able to transform herself into different. Another problem is that brand generally thinks, and I don't blame them because not every brand has necessarily deep pockets to spend. They say, okay, this is my 2D script, why don't you just change it into a 360? That can't happen because both are different media forms altogether. And then the question starts coming in that, okay, but I don't have additional budget. Who will write the script? Who will create the storyboard? Where is the studio? Who's going to shoot it? Show me the director. And then by the time you realize the 2D film is already out, they've got certain likes from the bosses and saying, "Raju, choda actually." So that's what happens. Great. I think so. either that was informative or non-informative. I leave it to you guys to decide. But thanks for your time.